Is examining some of the some difficulties. You know, we talked about when's it fair to refuse medical treatment. You know, what about the conundrums there? We've talked about child protective services and what we can do there. This is a little, maybe this is a little bit more mundane, but I wanted to talk about employment, employers, employees, employment, in a way that we haven't maybe examined before or thought about before. You know, with employees, the Bible has a lot to say if you're an employee. When we've all been employees, right? You do your work heartily as for the Lord. Slaves, obey in everything those who are your earthly masters, not by way of eye service as people pleasers, but with sincerity of heart, fearing the Lord. We know those things. We know that we owe a full day's work for a pay, those kinds of things. And then we also know about the admonitions to the employers. Masters, treat your slaves justly and fairly, knowing that you also have a master in heaven. So, on the one hand, we have this, you know, the employees, we owe good work for the day's pay, the employers owe justice and fairness. Here's a sticky thing. You're an employer. Put yourself in the place of an employer. You have a good employee who gets sick or has problems at home, can't make it in on time regularly. What do you do as an employer? What's your responsibility to that employee? He's not necessarily a bad employee. He's a good employee with bad circumstances. Do you carry him? Do you not carry him? Do you put your company at risk by carrying him? You know, you're paying a guy, you're not getting this, or you're maybe messing with morale. I couldn't find verses.
His only problem is that he doesn't show up sometimes.
You have an absenteeism problem. I mean, this is one possibility, one situation.
He gets sick a lot too.
Maybe he's sick, or maybe his family's sick and he can't come in on time. Maybe he's a single dad, or maybe she's a single mom. You know, the kids got sick, couldn't get a sitter. You know, what is the responsibility of an employer, a Christian employer, in a situation like that?
I think there could be a lot of options for an employer, and might not include, or necessarily include keeping them as an employee, but maybe there's another place you can reference them to where their schedule might, you know, another person who can work better with their schedule, and you know, you said they are a good employee, so it might be an asset to someone else. I don't know.
You know, I'm thinking about a person that's got a requirement. Let's say it's a single mom. She needs the employment. She needs full-time employment, but she's only got part-time hours available, in a sense. Maybe you have the ability to refer to somebody that you can find that job, but maybe not. That's a possibility. Is there a requirement that you keep that person on? Is it? I mean, it's a Christian thing to do, quote unquote Christian thing to do. It's a nice thing to do. But if everybody did it, you'd be out of business and nobody would have a job.
Well, I think maybe first of all, I don't know if that situation really happens very often, where they're a good employee but they have a showing up problem.
I know of one right now, which is why. It's not Sid, no. It's not Sid.
I'm sure it happens, but maybe not all that often.
Yeah.
Typically, if people have a problem showing up, there's, even for family reasons, if they have a bad family situation, there's other problems also, even in their work.
all tied to that too.
That's,
But, you know,
Right.
there could be a single mom situation, true.
right.
Well, but even if it is a situation Conrad is talking about, I think that, to me, that's not any less of a factor in the, look, if it's a family situation, I would expect that it's gonna affect their work to some degree. It just is, especially if it's a very serious one, so then the issue becomes, do you say, well, if their work's affected at all, then that's it? Like, you know, is that gonna be the basis of the, you know, I think that does play into it. I think you have to expect that if somebody has something serious going on, by nature, it's gonna be a distraction. It just is, and you're not going to probably see the same production out of them, unless you have a manufacturing job where it's machine assisted and it's just pumping out parts, period. I would imagine that if it's anything that's pretty much dependent on the actual person's performance, you're gonna see some sort of decline.
Yeah.
I think it's just a reality. So then that has to factor into what do you do? Or what-
Well, and it's gonna, a situation like that's gonna factor into how long do you do it? How long do you put up with it?
Right.
Is it a temporary affair that you think you can work through?
Or what is your
Or are you
response?
establishing precedent? Yeah,
Right.
Because then you get other, well, you
Yeah.
did it for him,
right, yeah, but I don't like you.
yeah, right.
We understand.
I don't like Sid either.
I told you, it wasn't
Oh,
Sid.
oh, oh.
It's not.
Got it for me today, jeez.
I worked at Redner's Market for a year or two in between things, and we had a guy there that had sleep apnea, bad. He was supposed to be there at 7:30 or 8, he'd come rolling in at 9:30. But he worked, once he got there, he was hard working, he worked 8 hours, but he was also in charge of ordering frozen food stuff. Well, that order has to be in at a certain time if you want it the next day. So there was, once in a while, he'd come but they were kind of flexible, and it's not an individual Christian owner type thing, but, you know, it's almost like everything's gonna be different, you're gonna have to, you know,
Yeah,
I mean,
to a point.
I look back on, so, York Wall Company, I worked for them for a while. And, not a Christian-owned company, but I was actually always really impressed with, I do think they genuinely cared about, at least in concept, they cared about their employees. One of the things that they had was, if you had come into a situation, maybe a family crisis or that sort of thing, they had requested that you go to HR and talk to them about it, and HR would help make available to you certain, whether it's counseling or whether it's certain programs or things to help you with that, and then sit down with your supervisor and come up with some sort of game plan to try and work through that. Now, if you didn't do that, if you didn't go to HR and you didn't, and your performance started going down, then they're gonna take that as, oh, look, his performance is going down, we're not gonna not factor in any of those other things, we're just gonna look at the work side of things.
yeah.
But if you went through that, they at least attempted to say, well, we'll work with you in this sort of time frame and see what we can do. See if we can manage this and get it back to where it needs to be. Again, you know, did they use faulty means? Sure. I mean, they're using pagan counselors and all that sort of stuff. The point is, I do look at that and say, it was somebody who, at least we're trying to say, we understand things can happen, and let's see what we can do to still invest in you, which they felt was gonna create better employees who felt that the company was actually on their side and trying to help them. I always respected that. I always really respected that.
I guess the biggest problem ends up being, what if they can't work through it? You know, it almost feels like you're kicking them when they're down to say, yeah, you gave it a shot, your performance isn't up to speed, we gotta let you go. Or, like, I don't know, that's, and I'm looking for verses, I'm looking for a biblical principle to lean on, to say, okay, this is how, I'm gonna evaluate these circumstances in this light.
All right. This isn't exactly a verse.
That's right.
Yeah. But I blame our PC culture. We say a Christian employer should help his employees. We're correct. Obviously, the employee should help his employer. We're correct on that again.
Right.
But I think we've got our definition of a help all ruined, entirely ruined. But our definition of help is you give me what I want. Vanguard now, where I work,
Is that camera on?
yeah, it is. A place I've heard about. They now give, maternity to guys, right? I think it's like 6 weeks or something.
Paternity.
Paternity leave.
Yeah, paternity leave, right? Yeah, they do, right? And so that's helping me, right?
Well, we know Jerry had
Yeah.
paternity leave at Bank of America.
Bank of America, yep, yeah, he's gonna get more, hasn't even used up his old yet.
That's right, she's expecting.
Right, you get to take it whenever you want, right?
Oh, you don't have to have the baby?
No, you still get to pick and choose when you want, right? Now that's our idea of helping, right? So I'm thinking, if you're gonna help me by giving me paternity leave 6 weeks, why don't you help me more by giving me 6 months? And you really help me if I don't have to work anymore at all. I mean, what do we mean by help here? And I blame our PC culture, because our PC culture says, you're not helping me if you tell me what I need to know, but if I feel bad about it. So you're not allowed to tell me, take the job. Hey, you know what? I know you got problems at home. I need you to be here. Can you be here or not? We can't even hardly talk that way anymore.
Right,
At the beginning.
right.
If I can do
That's
this,
kind of my question, is that fair? Is it fair to say,
Well, somewhere along the line, if you're paying someone and they're not working, then they're stealing,
Candles my business.
right?
yeah, right?
Well, within a private company, they should have the liberty to make such decisions. Obviously, banks are not really private, and
it should be, they're not.
they're not really. So, I mean, they can do these things because they make such large profits. off
Well,
of-
and when they're big enough, they end up getting regulated. Government's telling you the
Well, yeah.
compassion that you need to.
Right, they'll
provide.
be in charge of compassion.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's not the employer
It's gonna
himself
work out good, right?
being compassionate. It's mandatory.
Right, mandatory compassion.
yeah.
It's a contradiction in
Since
terms.
you know nothing about compassion, we'll
We
teach
do.
We're the
compassion.
government, we're here to teach you compassion.
I have a request, I want to play something, if I may.
Yeah.
This is old school hiring and firing, if you will. Something that would be done today. Last week, Steve Schlissel was here, and he turned me on to his ITRR, or OTRR, Old Time Radio Researchers. And if you're familiar, they do all these, they've captured all these old time radio shows. And this is from the late 50s. Basically a story about a rancher, and the initial story has him hiring people for a cattle drive. And it's something that absolutely would not take place today, the way he does this at all. But I would argue he's actually helping his employee in a way that we would not be allowed to help him today. So if it's all right, it takes probably a few minutes here.
All right.
I hope it'll actually shed some light to this.
It's tough business. It's big business.
Can you hear?
I got a big stake in it. There's no man west of the Rio Grande big enough to take it from me.
Ominous.
Luke Slaughter of Tombstone.
There's a name.
We're going
That's
back.
right. Don't go up against Luke Slaughter.
Luke Slaughter of Tombstone. Civil War cavalryman turned Arizona cattleman. Across the territory from Yuma to Fort Defiance, from Flagstaff to the Huachucas, and below the border through Chihuahua and Sonora, his name was respected, or feared, depending on which side of the law you were on. Man of vision, man of legend, Luke Slaughter of Tombstone. It was a long, hot ride to Laredo. last day I pushed it hard, eating dust all the way. Didn't know if I'd be in time or not. I rode up to the cantina in town and went inside. I saw I was. Barely in time. Two of them were sitting at a corner table. From the sound of it, the deal was just about closed.
Me and my boys will bring that herd up across the border for you in good shape.
Well, I hope so, Hancock. The association's pretty worried about all the trouble we've had on these drives before.
Excuse me, gents. Ben Wilkins,
Why, yes.
president of the Cattlemen's Association.
Yes, that's right. I don't think I know you.
Look, mister, we're talking business.
That's why I'm here, Hancock.
How come you know my name?
Wilkins, I understand you're aiming to bring a herd of cattle up from Mexico into Texas.
What's that to you?
You're missing a good bet. Why don't you drive them west, Arizona?
Arizona?
That's right. Have you heard about the new mines opening up around Tombstone? Everybody and his brother's headed out there, and they all gotta eat. That means a good market for beef. A lot better price than you get around here.
He's crazy, Wilkins. That's too far to drive a herd.
Yeah, it's sure too dangerous anyway. Why, there's banditos, rustlers, even Indians, maybe.
I took a herd out there last month. It wasn't near enough to take care of all those beef-eating miners. I'll drive your herd out there for you, for a percentage.
Now, you just shut that big mouth of yours, mister, whoever you are. I'm the one drives Wilkins' herds, wherever they go.
Oh. Wilkins, you can't afford Jess Hancock anymore.
What do you mean?
The last herd he brought across the border for you. How many did he, lose along the way?
Why, 43 head.
Could have happened to anyone. Banditos, that's what it was.
Mexican bandits, huh? Here's a bill of sale, might interest you, Wilkins. Seems last week a rancher named Hollister bought 43 head in good faith. Paid for them proper. The man who sold them was Jess Hancock.
That's a lie.
Take a look, Wilkins. That Hancock signature?
Sure is.
Nobody's gonna accuse me of rustling.
Don't try it, Hancock. I can kick that gun out of your hand before you get it loose from the holster.
You just tried me.
You convinced, Hancock?
Who are you, mister?
Slaughter. Luke Slaughter.
Mr. Slaughter. I didn't know you was in these parts.
You don't have to mister me, Wilkins. Just Slaughter's good enough.
Hancock, the association's going to hear about this. If those are the same 43...
You got no proof.
We'll see about that. Slaughter, you said Arizona, huh?
A lot of hungry miners in Tombstone.
Bigger price.
Can't forget as much.
Beat me back here and now. You got yourself a job.
I'll be here, Wilkins.
You hear me, Slaughter. I don't care what your reputation is. You ain't gonna beat me out of this. I'll stop you.
Here I am, Hancock. And now's as good a time as any. Go ahead.
Talk mighty tall with my gun laying there on the floor.
Oh, yeah. Your gun. There it is, Hancock. I'm just as far from that table it's sitting on as you are. Now go ahead.
There's other ways, Slaughter. There's other ways.
Now, look, Slaughter, when you signed for this job, you guaranteed me 6 good trail hands. I knew you were just going to pick them cold out the bar here.
That's the difference, Wilkins. They're not good hands now. They will be by the time we get to Tombstone. I'll see to that.
Yeah, I guess you will. How many you got so far?
2 Mexican boys who know the country pretty well, and a cook.
Still leaves you 3 shy.
I'll get them.
Say, mister, your name's Slaughter?
Yeah.
Mine's Rusty. I hear you're looking for trail hands.
Maybe. You went to Tombstone?
Not with a herd. Didn't know anybody had.
This will be the second.
Been almost every place else you can take a herd, I guess. Dodge City, Cheyenne, Panhandle, you name it.
All right, I'll take you.
Yeah, tired, mister?
That's right. You look a little old for the drive I've got in mind. Tombstone's a long way.
Don't worry about that. I'll keep up.
What's your name?
Call me Wichita.
All right, Wichita, you're on.
Wichita. Here, this is a lie.
Who are you, son?
Name's Carson. Jim Carson.
You ever ridden trail before?
No, but I don't figure it'd be too tough. Besides, Slaughter, I come in handy when there's trouble.
How about when there's work?
I'll work. I need the money. I want to buy me a gun.
You already got a gun.
I want to get me another one.
All right, I'll put you on. Say your name was Jimmy?
It's not Jimmy, it's Jim. I don't like being called Jimmy.
Go get your stuff together, Jimmy.
I guess you didn't hear me, Slaughter. I said I don't like being
You
called
want to
Jimmy.
come along or don't you?
I want to come.
Then get moving, Jimmy.
That's what. The guy, Slaughter, is helping Jimmy.
And Jimmy's dictating terms.
Yeah, that's right, he's not gonna do it, and he's not gonna call him Jimmy until he learns how to work. But you can't do that today. You have to protect Jimmy's sense of personal whatever it is, and Jimmy has to learn that his value to an employer is strictly in what he can do for his employer. Something we're absolutely not even allowed to even address in our PC culture. So what I'm saying is that took me longer to get there than I thought it would. I thought it would get there quicker. But what I'm saying is our PC culture, I think, handicaps the employer from helping them right out of the gate, right from the very beginning, from actually being a help. To be able to talk to Jimmy that way, but Jimmy needed to be talked to that way. Jimmy's gonna come and tell the cattle guy how he's gonna do it, but that's the way it is now.
So it's a matter of honesty and being able to be honest and truthful in this situation.
Yeah.
I found a verse here that just maybe gives a little hint. I don't know that I have an answer, but it says in 1 Peter, servants, be submissive to your masters with all respect, not only to those who are good and gentle, but to those who are unreasonable. So if unreasonable is the opposite of good and gentle, and unreasonable is a bad thing, good and gentle would be a good thing, right?
Good and gentle, sure.
So, I don't know, to not get rid of somebody right away would be gentle, right? More gentle.
More gentle.
Than just get rid of them.
Right.
I don't know if that has any implications or not.
Yeah, I think it's fair, I think any one of us would say, as a Christian, I will not be ruthless. I'm not gonna be without ruth, right? Whatever that means. Ruthless is without ruth. Have you ever been ruthful? But anyway, I digress. Yeah, we're not supposed to be ruthless.
That was impactful.
Oh, jeez.
Write that down.
Trying to clear my mind. Right, and that's not the, no one would expect that.
We'll get that later. We'll mop that. Don't worry about that. It'll dry up. We'll get it.
Yeah. It's how do we figure out where to and when to pull the trigger on having to let somebody go. There's certainly an underperforming employee, somebody who's putting people at risk, or somebody's not getting it done. Okay, that's pretty simple. It's never comfortable, but it's relatively simple. It's when there's these extenuating circumstances, and I guess that's my question. How do we define the extenuating circumstances that we're gonna cut somebody some slack? I mean, I've been on the receiving end of this, with the treatments and all that. I was out, now, I mean, I just used vacation days, but it affected the mill because I wasn't there certain days with the chemo.
Well, does anybody have a fundamental problem, because this is a big one, I think, to ask, is does anyone have a fundamental problem with the idea of you treat all people fairly, but not all people equally? because, you know, I mean, I look at it and say, here's the thing, if I'm an employer, and I have an employee that, that really needs grace in this period, and I choose to extend that. I may hear from the other employee as well, that's not fair, you're giving this person grace, but here's the thing, you guys aren't in a situation where you need it. How can I give it to you in a situation where you don't need it? But aren't you hoping that if, God forbid, you ever land in the same situation, you would then want grace?
The same.
Like, you're wanting something that may not even be applicable to you. And that's something that I sometimes think people miss in these situations is, an employer chooses to show grace, and then everybody else wants to go, well, they're getting special treatment, and I'm sitting there going, they're getting grace in a situation which is bad. And I would imagine that if you end up in the same situation, you're then all of a sudden gonna want him or her to be gracious to you. But it doesn't apply to you until you're in that situation. So I think you can treat all people fairly, but not all people equally.
Yeah, it's-
I mean, I don't know, does the parable, and I don't know this, does the parable of everybody being paid for the day's wages, but not all being in the field at the same time, does that apply here?
Always, that always applies.
You know, and if the owner chooses to do that, it is his business.
I was gonna bring that one up, yeah, but you're right, that's, what's that, Matthew, right?
Yeah,
Oh,
the vineyard workers.
Yeah.
I don't know what chapter, yeah.
I think it's
Would
10.
that be a possibility,
Is that Luke?
of resolution?
That's
I'm thinking Matthew.
Would that be a
That's like
resolution that
Matthew
you'd consider at the mill?
Yeah, it's
Docking
towards
this
the end.
guy some hay?
No, this isn't at the mill, the
Oh,
situation
oh, oh.
I know, yeah.
It's not Sid.
It might be tomorrow.
See, the employer can't treat them all equally because they're not all equal.
That's just it.
What you have one employee who's really trying hard and you know he is.
Right.
Another one says, I got that hangnail again, not coming in.
Right. Right, and that's why I say, I believe in treating all people fair, but it doesn't mean all people equal. It just can't, I don't think that works.
And the owner of the vineyard worker was fair. He
Right.
paid what he said he was fair, but they weren't all equal.
Right, like I don't, hopefully, we all love our children fairly, but it's not always equal. Like, I don't treat all my children the same way
You can't.
in action. I treat them all fairly, off the same standard, but how that actually plays out for each one is different.
Right, consequences
It
can be
has to
different.
be different, because you're right, they are all different.
And that may be, that we just have to use our discretion and go situation by situation.
See, while you're looking at, and another thing is, we actually, it seems to me, do not talk about employee-employee relationships anymore in the context of actually getting the job done. It's almost, that's peripheral. Getting the job done is not important. Everybody feeling good is what's important. And it seems to me we've lost a lot by losing that emphasis. It's the job that has to get done, can you do it or not? We don't even address that anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, how long would your business work? You know, hey, we went to work, right, and we had a Freudian counseling session for the first 2 hours. Then we had a team building exercise, and then we all went to lunch.
No, you gotta go stretching first.
Yeah, we got to stretch, right?
Stretching
Yeah.
exercises.
And everybody felt good and no work got done.
I'm not kidding about the stretching
Oh, yeah, it's become a bigger
on
thing.
the job sites, yeah. Yeah, it's Matthew 20. Landowner went out in the morning, hired laborers, agreed for a denarius, sent them into the vineyard about the 3rd hour, and then about the 11th hour, is it not lawful for me to do with what I wish with what is my own? Or is your eye envious because I am generous? So the last shall be first and the first last, is the way it concludes. So maybe that's it, maybe that's just, if you want to, you can, and you have to evaluate it on a situation by situation basis.
I mean, an employer who's fair and honest with his employees is going to get the best employees after a while anyway. I mean, you hear those kind of advertisements all the time, about the benefits and that kind of stuff. They're trying to attract good employees. So it's the kind of thing that's going to be known after a while, the one who tries.
And yet, what happens is that the benefits become entitlements.
They do. And that's our problem.
Now, this I can tell you from our own experience, at the mill.
Yeah.
We are a union shop, and there are time to time, we hear grumblings from some guys. And there are other times when the union reps come in.
Oh, what a pain in the neck.
What, the union reps come in and say, what is wrong with your people? Why on earth would they complain? You guys run a clean shop, a fair shop. You're never cheating them out of hours. You're never, the pay is good, the benefits are good. It's not for nothing they call it the Boyertown Complaining Mill. And and that's the union reps coming in.
Saying like, what is wrong with these people?
Right. But the guys who receive the benefits on a daily basis have been receiving them for so long that they don't recognize them. And so, that's a whole other ballgame. All I'm saying is, good benefits are never enough. Good pay is never enough. How much do you want to get paid? Well, a little bit more. It's how high is up. There's no definition for that. So, people who have been in really bad employment situations will appreciate good employment situations. But people who've always been in good employment situations tend to think that they're not. But that speaks to another issue. So
in this case, the good employer, all they really had to do was believe him, pretty much, that he was gonna pay him.
They was gonna pay them.
Yeah, pretty much, it wasn't a whole lot more than that to that.
Right.
Yeah.
One of the things I went to was, what Christ talked about, the guy who comes in from the field, the owner comes in after a hard day's work and expects his servant, who has been working in the field all day, to get his meal, and, he doesn't owe him any thanks, that's his job.
Right.
That's his job, he's the slave, he's supposed to be served. And, it's tempting as an employer to say, well, that's my spot. But no, that's Christ's spot. And that's not
Right, he's not.
the employer's
Not
spot.
exact parallel there. Yeah.
No, not even close, I don't think. Yes, the employer should be able to expect his employees to work, but not without compassion.
Right.
Well, I mean, again, I'm just trying to think, we talk about the ox treading out the corn.
Yep.
But I also think about, what if you only own one ox and he's gimpy? Are you gonna beat him harder till he walks faster? At what point do you?
Slaughter him and eat him?
Sell the meat and buy a good ox.
I mean, I don't know, that's what I'm just saying, there's a level to it, you look at that sort of thing and you go, there comes a point, I think, where you have to be able to make the call of, what am I willing to deal with?
Right.
What will hinder me, what won't? Maybe I can let the ox rest today, and maybe I can't.
Yeah.
And,
I think that's as good advice as we're gonna get. That's,
And I think that goes back to the parable of the owner who sent guys out to the vineyard several times through the day, and he paid them the same.
Right.
It was at his discretion. His business, his money.
well, and they had all bargained up front. They all knew what they were getting.
They all agreed.
They all agreed to it.
And that's, this employee agreed to certain terms.
Do X, Y, Z. Yeah.
Can't meet them. Would the owner be wrong to let him go? I can't say that he would be. There would certainly be a hope, because we are expected to have a certain level of compassion, try to work with them. But I don't know that we can set a lot of hard and fasts. I don't know that Scripture does, and I think that's why we do see so few verses directly relating to it.
Yeah, the final analysis was just talking with a guy this week. He said, nobody ever told me Christianity was going to be this hard. It's hard. You got to think about it every day, all day long.
It's a good thing, yeah.
And I guess that's the situation we're finding ourselves in here. You gotta, it's hard,
Yeah.
and it's gonna be hard. And that's just what we're stuck with.
You know, for me, at least a minimum, I would like to at least discuss at some point the responsibilities of the employee to the employer. I remember years ago when I worked for FedEx out in Columbia, well, we covered Columbia, and they had an Armstrong plant out there. I think the floor guys and the whole Armstrong thing is, was in trouble a lot. Some of it was union related. But I remember they did a strike, and some of the FedEx guys were talking about how terrible the employers were. And they had these stories, right, flying around about the terrible employer, right? The guys that sign the check, those horrible people. Anyway, I guess I know things happen. But I remember challenging one of the guys who was talking. He says, well, I asked him, I said, so yeah, the bad employers, I get it. How about the employees? I said, what do you think? I said, they always give 8 hours work for 8 hours pay. All the employees, they never goof off, right? And they never steal. And they always show up on time. And they're just happy to be there, right? And he had never really thought. He just had never thought of employee responsibility. He just hadn't.
And is there biblically a conditional relationship there?
Well, I think there is in this case. I hired you for this one day. There's not a whole lot of, benefits and long-term and, lifetime employment here. And the guy's a good businessman. He didn't know how long it would take. He did the smart thing. Maybe he thought that he could harvest the whole thing with just his first group, and save himself a lot of money. Good business.
My father-in-law works for a pretty large company, and he told me at their business, the way they think about it, their policy is customer first, company second, employees third. And I was putting that back and forth in my mind. Like a lot of people would probably say customer, employee, company. But their rationale is if the company goes, then they don't have a job anyway. So it has to be
Right?
I don't know. Do you think that's the right way of thinking about it?
I do. I like that. I never heard it formulated that way, but
Yeah.
that rings true, because without a customer, you don't have a company. Without a company, you don't have employees. You have to look in terms of priorities.
So in that analysis, if the problem starts affecting customer service or profit, then
It will certainly affect the profits. There's no question about that. That an employee that's not working full-time or up to par is going to affect your overall profitability.
so then what does it mean to say company second? That's what I'm trying to figure out. If it's not profits exactly, then
I think that ultimately you have to, as Seth has been saying, is that you have to evaluate this and say, overall, what does this do to my company?
Okay.
And that if I can show this grace, I will. If I can't, if it's going to overall in a blanket way, this is going, and that brings in other employee morale, and the customers, and maybe even government. Gosh, if I get rid of this person, I got Equal Opportunity Employment Commission breathing down my neck. And those are real things. About lawsuits and yada yada. So when you're an employer, you're in the risk management business, and you're looking for the potholes everywhere, in every direction, from the customer side to the employee side to the regulatory side to the legal side, all of it. The vendors, what if the person who's not coming in is the person who processes the accounts payable, and now your vendors aren't getting paid on time? Is that going to affect my business? Yep. What if you're not getting shipped because you're not paying your bills on time, or you're not processing your bills on time?
That might affect your business.
It might affect your business.
Not shipping your product.
We have customers that we've fired because of not processing their paperwork or not getting us paid on time, because we can't afford to work for them regardless of how many contracts. If they're not paying us on time, they're jeopardizing our business. Sid's got more to fire. He's got a,
So it is Sid.
it is, it is. That's right.
No, it's Sid that's wanting to fire customers.
When you're in the collection business, you want to fire everybody, right? Get rid of them all. Yeah. Yeah.
Not all.
Yeah, we underestimate it, and I say our PC culture. The other thing is our status culture, that we do not properly appreciate the ability of employees, because of Marxist class warfare, we do not appreciate the ability to work.
Go ahead.
For Sutton, right? The company allowed, I don't know if you guys know this, company, when Sutton, when Sadie was in the hospital all the time, the company that Sutton worked for at the time, as I understand it, allowed other employees to donate vacation to Sutton. You know, this is just I'm sure there's no bureaucracy saying this is what you have to do, but this is just a company, yeah, exactly. Wait till they get the idea, and then they'll start it. But this is just a company working with the ability of employee and employees to work together to come up with solutions that work. I mean, what a solution. I wouldn't have thought of that.
That was the CEO, eventually. It got up to him, and HR said, well, that's not in policy, he just said, change the policy. And a couple of days later, it was changed, and people were donating some of their vacation to something.
But to your point about the statism, this gets back to what Steve Schlissel was talking about last week, which is that we're fighting on their territory. We're letting them set the terms, and we're fighting about their terms. Well, we're saying, wait, we should be saying as Christians, wait, your terms are wrong.
Yeah. Terms are wrong.
We're not going to fight that fight because that's an illegitimate fight. So.
Yeah, I recommend in this movie, in this discussion, the Molly Maguires. You ever seen the movie?
Oh yeah, it's filmed up in Pottsville.
Yeah. I recommend the movie because the Irish miners are going on strike and getting violent about it because they're not getting what they think is due. And the movie doesn't point this out, but if you're watching it, you're thinking, wait a minute, you're Irish miners coming here, the job stinks. But I think those ships could go both ways, right? I think you're here for a reason. If it stinks that bad, I'm sure they have a lot of space. Going back, because ain't nobody going back, so you probably have the whole place to yourself. But they don't point that out in the movie, but they should.
That is, I think it's a fair point to bring up about, they had the option to go elsewhere. But weren't they paying them in their own private currency that could only be spent at their own
company
stores? Is that just?
So I don't even know if that really is what happened or not. I know those charges flew around there. Were they able to take that money and trade it? I don't know. Even still, even if that's what they were doing, if they were lied to when they came, that's one thing. But if they knew that, I mean, they're over here for a reason. Somebody is writing them a letter across the ocean and saying, get away from the potato stinking famine, come over here to Pennsylvania and you get a job. And they would have known then if it's company store. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, even if it is their own private currency, they still made a choice to.
Right, it's better
or engage in a
famine.
contract.
Yeah. Anyway, see the movie, it's really good.
If we can watch the movie here sometime.
On Joel's laptop.
Yeah, we're gonna graduate from radio to movies.
Well, we've gone over, I know. Hopefully, these things have been a little bit thought-provoking. I appreciate the discussion. It's not a lecture, it's more fun this way. Matt never says anything, but otherwise, it was more fun. I'm gonna take him out and beat him up. We have our last premarital counseling session with Megan today. So they'll probably graduate.
You'll need to let me know.
I'll let you know.
Pay attention.
I'll graduate.
How many
Last
people-
shot, pal.
How many people have you flunked out in the
Pay attention or
Well, so
pay
far
up,
we've got,
maybe.
we've got Renee and Jonathan and Mary and Jerry, you know, so far we're okay, 2 for 2. We,
Those get to be good numbers nowadays.
yeah, that's right, that's right. Anyway, but thanks for participating, and I know we'll look forward to Conrad's problem of evil. I'm looking forward to it next time. And anybody else who comes up with a Sunday school topic, wants to teach it, you know, let me know. We'll accommodate you. Let's dismiss with prayer. Father, we thank you again for the time that you give us. We thank you that you've given us your word, and pray that we would wrestle with it always. We thank you for employment. We thank you for employers. We thank you for employees, and pray that the work that we do to support our families would be available to us. And we thank you for being able to provide for families. Pray that you would make us ever more productive in your purposes, and more productive for those that we serve. We know that these are all gifts from your hand, and we pray these things in Christ's name. Amen.